Hello, Abnormal Investigations. I've got another encounter for you. I think you're going to really enjoy this one. It comes out of Saskatchewan, Canada, and I think it's a pretty good encounter. I want to thank everybody that's making donations to Hunter on the Cash App and the PayPal. If it wasn't for you guys doing what you're doing, it would be so much harder to fight for him. And you all have made a lot of things possible, and you all are continuing to make things possible. The reason I'm bringing this up is I got an email today from a person that said, I'm sorry I was only able to donate $5. That $5 goes a long ways. It means a lot to us, everything that we get, because it's not just you doing it, and everybody that does it, it adds up, and it's made a huge difference. We have a big court date coming up, and we're looking forward to that date, and we know it's going to be a good date, and we're anxious. So thank you, everybody, and I'll get on to the encounter. I just want to thank everybody. It means a lot to us. I'm from a very small town in Saskatchewan, Canada. I lived here almost all my life and never seen anything too abnormal until this year. So almost every weekend, my friend, well, all her, Erica, and I always go to the ski hill near here and work on our snowboarding skills. We usually go around 2 p.m., so we have about 2 hours to snowboard before it gets too dark and cold out. Since the sun usually sets around 4 here in the winter, about 2 months ago we were doing this very thing and had a good day. The ski hill is about an hour from our town, so by the time we had finished up, which was about 3:45 p.m., it was starting to get dimmer. We hopped into our little car and started the drive back. About 45 minutes later, we were getting close to home, and it was already pretty dark outside. Our town is kind of in the middle of nowhere, and everyone in Canada knows Saskatchewan is very barren and flat, so it was a very vast, remote area, and no one was on the highway. The roads were bad that night due to a fast wind, so we had to slow down a lot on the highway, and it was giving us both anxiety. We had never been in an accident, and of course, we didn't want to be into one. At one point, there was a very snowy part of the vacant highway, and we had to slow down even more. That's when a figure leaped out onto the road and stopped just at the edge of my headlights. Erica screamed, and I gasped and held my breath as I slammed on the brakes, which caused us to fishtail a lot. I barely managed to control the vehicle, but we came to a stop just in front of the figure. I immediately looked up to it. At a first glance, I truly thought it was just a deer, but as I took it in more detail, it just looked so wrong. It was massive. I've seen deer around here too, many times to count, and I live in a hunting community, so I just knew this wasn't any normal deer from around here. It had long limbs, and its antlers were really big. But not only were its limbs long, they were just so disfigured, I guess. It's hard to explain, but it just looked like it was injured, and it wasn't sure how to just get out of the way of us. And like any normal deer around here would do at the side of a vehicle, I expected it to run back into the ditch. But it just stood there, not moving a muscle. Everything about the situation felt so wrong. And yes, I know deer can be captivated in the headlights and not move. But this creature, it showed no signs of fear. It didn't even look like it was breathing. It just stared at us with cold, dead eyes. Its whole presence just felt evil and life-threatening. Its bones were jutting out from everywhere under the skin, and it just so matted. The hair was just like it had been just never took care of itself. It was so nasty looking. And some parts just looked a little, I don't know, like maybe rotten blood on it. Eric and I didn't really say anything. We didn't know what to say. We couldn't look away from the creature. After what felt like 10 minutes, but was probably just one, I just walked. or it just walked. Not run or frolic. It walked back into the ditch, the opposite direction it came from, and disappeared to the other side of the transcan. Erica and I exchanged looks, and as she was the first to say something, she said, "What the F was that?" she said. I don't know what to tell her. We talked about it on the rest of the way home and decided maybe it was just a weird, intense deer that was just maybe an injured one that had been hunted and hurt maybe. Both of us do believe in cryptids, but I think it was for our own sanity, you know. I thought that would be it. I'd never see it again. But unfortunately, I was wrong. Just about a week ago, my dad and I were playing around and exploring on our ski-doos just up by the North Saskatchewan River, and we had just gotten down to the bank to see if it was ice. We wanted to check to see if the ice was thick enough to ride on. My dad drove his ski-doo down first to test it and soon came back up onto the bank to ask if I wanted to go on the ice. I refused since I was still very new to this and didn't want to try it yet. He agreed and we decided to go along the bank more and explore and look around. We soon came to some thicker trees, the pines, when we began to smell something a little off. It wasn't very powerful, but it also just smelled really bad. It was clearly something rotten or something, but we were in a snowy area where everything was supposed to smell clean. My dad went a little further ahead of me, and I thought maybe it was just a skunk or something. I didn't know. I slowly went ahead and followed my dad's tracks and watched the trees a bit, and that's when I saw it again. That same creature, walking in the same direction I was headed. It was pretty much far back in the trees, but you could still tell it was massive. I'm talking, this thing was massive. All of the features from the 2 months before were still present, if not a little more worsened. It didn't do anything, except for stand up on its hind legs and walk off further back into the trees in a weird waddle, and I haven't seen anything like this ever again. But the way it walked, it didn't act comfortable on 2 legs. It was kind of staggering. But it did walk off on 2 legs, and it was massive. Erica and I have told our friends, and I even told my dad. My dad told me we should never go back to this area again, and we have plenty of parts down here to explore. He said give whatever it is time to do what it's going to do. If it's going to die, move on, or maybe finishing hunting the area. I asked him what he thought it was. He said the elders have spoke of it before. They said sometimes it shows up and it will stay for a few weeks and then it just disappears, and sometimes it's never seen for years. Has anybody else ever experienced this? And if you have, please give me some idea of what I've seen. You know, I've been hearing a lot of reports of these kind of things, and a lot of people I know are, the first thing they're going to say is a Wendigo. I've never encountered anything that looked anything like this. I'm not saying they're not out there. I'm just saying I don't have any experience in what you're talking about. I've never experienced anything that looks like this. I think it's interesting how, you know, a lot of people are seeing these creatures that look a lot like deer. And it brings you back kind of to thinking about the Bigfoot, you know. People talk about they went out and they've fed their cows, and whenever they were feeding their cows, they thought it was just a cow at one point, and then when they got the truck closer later in the evening, it would stand up and run off into the woods bipedally. I sometimes wonder if these creatures, and this is just a theory, but these creatures, if their DNA was, you know, tainted, and every living creature was by the Nephilim, it makes me wonder, is the part of the animal that was corrupted, like a cow, say, or a deer, or a bear, or, you know, a canine, do they still have that mentality, that herd mentality, that pack mentality? And if they do they graze with these animals? Do they run in these herds with these animals? And do they do it for protection? Do they do it for the free food the farmers bring, the free water? Do they do it to be able to hide? I think that would be a great way for them to be able to hide and to fit in. And we would drive right by on the highway. I mean, if you had a large Bigfoot or a juvenile out there, you're going to think it was a calf or you're going to think it was a cow. And I mean, really, how many people drive down the highway and look at a bunch of cows and then try to find a Bigfoot in the middle of them, right? So I think these creatures may use it to hide. So if you're around things like that, maybe be more cautious of what's around you, and Make sure you know how many cows there are. Maybe do a head count of your animals, and if you have one extra, then you might want to start looking at your animals to make sure that they're all yours. That's the best thing that I know to tell you. But I do think it's very neat that people are seeing different things out there, and we know there's different things out there. I mean, me and Sarah have seen different things. It's not just Bigfoot. So, Kaylee, even on her encounter, when she had the encounter where she looked directly at the creature down there, and it was only about probably 10 to 15 feet from her, it she described it as looking more like a bear than a Bigfoot. So these things always look different, and I think that just goes to show that there's a lot of different creatures out there that have been corrupted. What are your all's opinions and thoughts on this? I look forward to seeing your comments. And thank you all so very much for listening and watching. And I'll be going out probably this week to that place I went on the live to do a daytime investigation. It won't be a live, but it will be a video out, and I'm going to go explore it, and that way y'all will be able to see it in the daylight. And let's go check out that X across the road, and we'll see what's down there. So be looking for that video to come out pretty soon. It'll probably be like the daylight return or something like that, so it'll be coming out soon. Thank you all very much for watching. Until next time, keep your head on a swivel, and we'll see you on the next one.